Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is the 23rd of March, now it's 12:30, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my channel in which I share latest updates on the news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There is quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment. But before I start, let me once again emphasize how grateful I am for your time, attention and support. It truly does mean a lot to me, so thank you very much. That being said, let's talk about news now, and I will start with Ukraine and special military operation. And the first news that I like to share with you is about statement that head of Ukrainian ground forces Alexander Syrsky made when he had a meeting with Zelensky just recently. And according to this information, Colonel General Alexander Syrsky, commander of ground forces of Ukrainian armed forces, reported to Zelensky about the risks of offensive near Bakhmut in the coming days due to rainy weather, which leaves the window for the armed forces of Ukraine only 3 to 4 days. So, if I understand correctly, this news is one more indirect confirmation of my prediction about this so-called and anticipated by many large-scale counteroffensive that Zelensky's regime will try to conduct in direction of Bakhmut to deblocate city. Let me show you on the map this area. As you know, almost 2 weeks now, all the media sources and many Telegram channels are talking about almost inevitability of large-scale counteroffensive of Zelensky's regime to deblocate Bakhmut and to encircle and destroy PMC Wagner units in this direction. I was very skeptical from very beginning. I was thinking that there is no way Zelensky's regime will pull off such a counteroffensive because they just simply don't have enough manpower to do so. It was very obvious to me. And I will explain I will explain reasoning behind my skepticism. First of all, right now on the front line we have at least 4 or 5 hot points where Zelensky's regime has need to reinforce local garrisons on almost on a weekly basis. And these hot points are, if we start from north, it's a Kupiansk direction, of course it's Liman and Seversk, then Bakhmut and Chisovyar. If we come to south from Bakhmut, it's Ugledar that become a hot point just about week or 2 weeks ago. And Donetsk direction is generally very active in previous months, even more, very active. And even Ugledar. So we have so many hot points where Zelensky's regime need to find the manpower to reinforce local garrisons. And this time, so many military experts and even big name channels on YouTube or Telegram were translating this information that Zelensky's regime will now start some large-scale counteroffensive to deblocate Bakhmut. And I was thinking, how? Just how? Only way Zelensky's regime can use reserves is from northern side, from Belarusian border, and by different accounts it's up to 20 to 30,000 soldiers that Zelensky regime has in direction of border with Belarus. And second direction is Zaporozhye. There are different accounts yet again, but some sources are saying that Zelensky's regime did accumulate in Zaporozhye direction up to 50,000 soldiers to conduct large-scale counteroffensive in direction of land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia, as it is demanded by Washington and London. And if Zelensky pulls out troops from Belarusian border, then that side will be wide open. And if Zelensky will pull out forces from this grouping in Zaporozhye region, then they will be then Zelensky will lose even theoretical chance to conduct any counteroffensive whatsoever in Zaporozhye region. So for me, it was clear from the very beginning that it was some deception operation by part of Zelensky and his Western masters. And all these talks about Ukrainian counteroffensive in Bakhmut direction was just crap. And it's obvious now that I was correct. My thinking was right, my logic was right, and we will see no large-scale counteroffensive of Zelensky's regime in Bakhmut direction whatsoever. There will be some local-scale movements, but that's usual stuff on the front line. That's everyday stuff on the front line anyway, so we cannot count that as some kind of large-scale counteroffensive. Of course not. To be honest, I do believe that it will be exactly the opposite. In coming days, Russian side will start moving forward in rapid pace again to encircle Chisov Yar, and to destroy all the units that Ukrainian units that are in this area, Bakhmut, Chisov Yar area. When it comes to Bakhmut itself, even though this pro-Ukrainian map is not acknowledging this, but this area here, this opening here, is under Russian control now. Mainly 70–80% is under Russian control. Ukrainian forces retreat. Some of them retreat, some of them surrender, and some of them find the last day in previous 24 hours. But basically, right now, all that Ukrainian armed forces are controlling in Bakhmut is a central part of this city. Just central part of this city. And as I said many times before, it will take some time for PMC Wagner units to establish full control over the central parts too, because according to sources, Zelensky's regime has left in Bakhmut basically to die from 3 to 5 to up to 10,000 soldiers. So as you can imagine, even though those Ukrainian units in Bakhmut are demoralized and are not able to conduct effective counteroffensive or defensive operations, it will definitely take time to disarm, at least to disarm these people. Even if all those 10 or 5,000, no one probably knows how many of soldiers Zelensky's regime left there to die. But let's say 5,000. That's a conservative estimate. So if all those 5,000 soldiers will decide to surrender, even that will take days to organize, because it's not a movie, isn't it? These units have to come out one by one, lay down arms. They have to be checked and sent to prisoner camps. So it will take time, at least 2 or 3 days, even if entire Bakhmut garrison will surrender right now. But because some of them are surrendering, it's clear. But majority of forces are still probably waiting for some miracle, which will not happen, not for Bakhmut garrison. And to disarm those and neutralize those units that are not able or unwilling to lay down arms, it will take at least probably a week, maybe more, probably more. But as I said quite a few times in previous weeks, Bakhmut garrison basically is done. Bakhmut garrison is done. They are collapsed. And they are, in city center, and they cannot go anywhere. So there is one more ideas that are circulating in the internet that Zelensky may order Bakhmut garrison to try and retreat in mass from Bakhmut in coming days. And then Zelensky and his henchmen will blame this defeat in Bakhmut to Syrskyi, head of ground forces of Ukraine. But yet again, if Bakhmut garrison will try now to leave city in mass, they will become under heavy artillery fire or direct fire from Russian units, and they will have some catastrophic losses to cross these 10 to 11 kilometers from Bakhmut to Chisov Yar. So as I said, it's a catastrophe in the making. It's a disaster in the making that we are now seeing in Bakhmut. And Ukrainian armed forces will lose in coming days at least a few thousand soldiers that will refuse to surrender. And I hope majority will make right decision in Bakhmut and will surrender when they have a first opportunity to do so and save their lives. So when it comes to overall situation on the front line, as you can see, it's quite activization in Kupiansk direction. It's activization in Seversk direction. Avdiivka is almost encircled. At this point, we had information, and I did share this information on my Telegram channel, that this village here, Novobakhmutka, is under Russian control now. So Russian forces are moving forward from north and from south to encircle not just Seversk, but larger area and all the units that are in this direction. And of course, Ugledar is still quite a hot point on the front line. This part of Dachis area is under Russian control, as I understand, and at least half of these other Dachi settlements, if not entirely, because as I said yesterday, I did see videos when Russian forces were targeting Ukrainian positions inside the city using anti-tank guided rockets systems, and those systems can be used in on a close proximity up to few kilometers, from few hundred to meters to a few kilometers. So my guess is that forward units of Russian armed forces are in a few hundred meters from Ugledar. So that's a general situation on the front line. There will be no large-scale counteroffensive in Bakhmut direction. Me personally, I'm expecting that in coming days we will see mass surrender of Ukrainian forces to the Russian side, and probably we will see attempt from Bakhmut garrison to withdraw in mass from Bakhmut, even though that will be suicidal move. Some of them will make it, yes, but many of them will end up under artillery fire or direct fire from PMC Wagner units. And yeah, as I said many times, best decision they can make is to surrender to Russian side and save their lives. When it comes to Zaporozhye region, we did have the information. This is RIA Novosti's report that in previous 5 days, Zelensky's regime did, forces that are loyal to Zelensky's regime did try twice to conduct some local scale counteroffensives in Zaporozhye direction, but all those counteroffensives were repelled by Russian side, and Ukrainian forces lost almost entire groups, entire units that were conducting these local scale counteroffensives. But yet again, as I said many times before, Zaporozhye and Kherson regions will become hot points in coming days and weeks, because Zelensky has no other choice other than order Ukrainian armed forces to conduct large-scale counteroffensive in direction of this land bridge, in direction of Melitopol, Berdyansk, to cut this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. Even though I'm quite sure generals, Ukrainian generals, probably are telling Zelensky that it's a suicidal mission to try to conduct a counteroffensive, but does Zelensky cares about lives of Ukrainian soldiers? Of course not. So he has orders from Washington and London, and he will try to execute those orders, no matter how many Ukrainian soldiers will die and how much damage will be done to Ukraine, because he is a puppet, he is a puppet pig of the US elites and UK elites. That's what he is, basically. Mass murderer, war criminal, and puppet pig. That's what Zelensky is, and all his henchmen, basically. Let's continue now. Let's continue. And to be honest, I'm quite disappointed to see that for so long armed forces of Ukraine did not find courage in themselves, even though they did give a great fight to Russian side, isn't it? They truly proved that they are great fighters, but still they cannot find courage in themselves to take out all those Nazis and criminals that are running Ukraine, from Zelensky to last Nazi animal that are in so-called government of Ukraine. I cannot believe that Ukrainian soldiers and officers do not understand that they are destroying their country and their society by executing orders of those criminals and their masters in Washington and London. I mean, it's just unbelievable, though. It's unbelievable. You know, I cannot believe that CIA, for example, controls all the officers in Ukrainian army. It's impossible. CIA, of course, controls Zaluzhny, for example, head of general staff of Ukraine, of course, and many other generals, including this idiot Syrsky, head of ground forces of Ukraine. CIA, Pentagon, and basically Washington and London do control majority of generals in Ukrainian army. There can be no doubts about it, but they cannot control all officers, all the officers of Ukrainian army, isn't it? And why they are not doing anything to save their own country from those criminals? You know, I don't know, man. I just don't get this. They should, a long time ago, conduct some operation to take out all those criminals, from Zelensky to last last Nazi animal, and establish a new government and start peace negotiations with Russian side. But, so let's continue now. Let's continue. This is RIA Novosti's report. This is RIA Novosti's report about statements that Medvedev made during his interview with the main Russian media outlets. And he did make some quite strong statements during this interview. And according to this news, for example, Medvedev once again said that deliveries of Western weapons to Zelensky's regime, bringing closer this world to a nuclear disaster. To a nuclear disaster. That's what he says. And when high-level officials, and Medvedev is deputy chairman of Russian Security Council. He is not just former president of Russia, but he is a deputy chairman of Russian Security Council. And when high-ranking officials are talking about nuclear escalation, it's dangerous. It's always dangerous, and no one should take these statements lightly. because it's very serious, you know. If he is talking about it, probably he is thinking about it. Maybe there were some meetings in between top top military leaders and political leaders, and maybe they have some red lines that you know, after crossing of which by Western elites they will use nuclear weapons. Who knows? Who knows, man? But it's dangerous, and that's why it's so important to somehow influence Western elites to stop them, because we need the escalation, and we need the escalation right now before it's not too late. Because too much talk about nuclear weapons, man, from high-ranking officials, and this is dangerous. This is immoral. This is very dangerous. But as I said many times before, one day Moscow may be forced by Western elites to use its nuclear weapons. Even society in Russia may demand from Moscow to use nuclear weapons and finish this conflict. Because, you know, everyone should understand, society in Russia is also getting tired. Russian side also has casualties, isn't it? And one day, and this day is coming closer and closer, Russian society may demand from Moscow to end this conflict as fast as possible, and Moscow may be forced to use tactical nuclear weapons. For example, you know, let's see this map again. We do know that Zelensky's regime has some large forces accumulate in Kramatorsk-Slavyansk defense line, isn't it? It only takes 2-3 tactical nuclear weapons, and there will be no forces of Zelensky's regime in this area. 2-3 tactical nukes, and that's it. And no Russian soldiers will have to die to establish control over this area, to disarm all those Ukrainian units. Let's take Bakhmut. How many Russian citizens died during this fight for Bakhmut? It was only a matter of 1 tactical nuke, and no Russian soldier will die establishing full control over the entire this area. And we can say, take Ugledar. It's only a matter of 1 tactical nuke, and there is no issue no more for Russian soldiers, and no Russian soldiers have to die to establish control over this area. It sounds very, very harsh, very tough. I do understand that, but what US still saying about their use of nuclear weapons against Japan? They said, and they are saying right now to this day, that it was necessary to save American lives that will be lost in battles with Japanese forces if they did not strike Hiroshima and Nagasaki and did not force Tokyo to surrender. So basically what I'm afraid of is that Moscow may end up in a situation when this logic will come to play, and Moscow will be forced to use tactical nuclear weapons. And as I said, maybe even society will demand such a development. I do know many people in Russia that already are demanding it. I know personally many people in Russia that don't understand why Russia already did not nuke all the large military units of the Zelensky regime. So situation is getting very close to extreme escalation, in my opinion, and I don't even know at this stage if it's even possible to avoid nuclear escalation. Maybe it's already too late. So this is still RIA Novosti. And he also, yet again, I mean, he is talking about nuclear weapons too often nowadays. And he said that if Russia did not have nuclear weapons, and if Russia was not main nuclear powerhouse, Western elites will tear apart Russia and destroy it for a long time ago. And this is probably true. You cannot argue with this, isn't it? Western elites openly are talking about the desire to divide Russia and conquer and rule over the Russia and use all the nature's riches that now are in Russian hands and in hands of Russian society. Not in hands of Russian society, but formally at least all the Russia's natural riches belongs to Russian citizens. In reality, it may be quite a different picture, but still, Western elites, of course, want to use all those oil fields, gas fields, gold, diamonds, forests, just everything. Russia is the richest country in this world with the natural resources. So yes, let's continue now, and this is still RIA Novosti, and we have information about publication that was in Bloomberg, according to which Washington now is afraid that many countries in this world will take Chinese side when it comes to peaceful initiatives and peace negotiations over the Ukraine topic. And this is a possibility. This is possibility because Washington did conduct itself in the way that probably very few countries in this world still any respect towards the Biden administration, if any. And the Chinese initiative about peace talks may become popular among other countries, and we should realize that China recently was very active and very successful in international stage. Just recently, they did manage to help Saudi Arabia and Iran to start talk again, which is a huge deal for Middle East and for entire world. So yes, US probably afraid that China will become a major player in the world when it comes to diplomacy, also not just economical powers but political powers. And China will gain some political influence over the world, but this is basically inevitable because Washington acting like crazy. So they should blame themselves. I mean, Biden administration did damage US reputation like no other president probably before. Let's continue now, and this is TASS News Agency's report about also article in Washington Post, according to which if Western elites will further delay deliveries of Western military equipment to Ukraine, Russia may gain some upper hand on the front line. I don't know what authors, writers or journalists of these Western outlets are thinking, what kind of information they have about the situation on the front line. But Russia is right now in a favorable position, even now and always was basically. And it's only because of some decisions that Russian political and military leadership did made that this conflict is continuing so long. Some decisions that was based on some humanitarian aspects, let me say this way, because if Russian forces approach this special military operation and conduct special military operation from the very beginning, like they are conducting operations now, I'm quite sure this conflict will be finished quite a long time ago. But Moscow did try to minimize damage to Ukraine, to Ukrainian society, to Ukrainian armed forces even. Russian side was very soft when Russian forces went in, but it didn't work out because London and Washington did not allow Kiev to conduct negotiations with Moscow. We all remember this, isn't it? And now we have different stage of this conflict. So, you know, no matter what Western media outlets are writing, Russia is in favorable position and Russia will emerge victorious from this conflict with Western elites in any scenario, except full-scale nuclear exchange, of course, because then nobody will be winners. Then everyone will lose. But when it comes to weapons deliveries from the West, as I said many times before, more weapons Zelensky's regime will receive, longer this conflict will continue. But outcome of this conflict is already decided. Zelensky's regime and the Western masters of Zelensky and his henchmen already lost. Already lost. Let's continue now, and this is a statement from, yet again, just look at this, man. This is a statement from Russian ambassador in USA, Anatoly Antonov, and he said that deliveries to Zelensky's regime shells with depleted uranium will bring closer nuclear Armageddon. So that's quite strong words, man. Quite strong words from high-ranking officials. So it was said before that if West will send shells with depleted uranium, Moscow will react accordingly and very strongly. And we have very strong statements now from Moscow. And who knows how will the situation develop. But as I said just a few minutes ago, and more Russian high-ranking officials are talking about nuclear escalation, and this is bad. This is too bad, because probably Moscow is already in the situation or close to the situation when Russian political and military leadership don't see no more any other option other than use of nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons or whatever nuclear weapons. And that will be, you know, and then God knows what will happen, really. Let's continue now, but before I share with you this news, let me a little bit advertise my channel, if I may. Dear friends, if you think this channel is interesting, useful, has some potential and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal or subscribe to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box, and of course I'm gonna be very grateful for your help. And let's continue now. And this is TASS News Agency's report about statements that Stoltenberg, head of NATO, made, according to which NATO expects that this conflict in Ukraine will continue for a long time, and Stoltenberg is urging European states to make sure that they are ready for this kind of development, because conflict, as he's seen it, will continue a long time, and Ukraine will need not Ukraine. They are not supporting Ukraine. They are supporting Zelensky, this mass murderer Zelensky, and other Nazi criminals that are running Ukraine, and under orders of Washington and London. So yes, Stoltenberg is urging European nations to get ready to support Zelensky's Nazi regime as long as it takes, because this conflict will continue for a long time, according to Stoltenberg. Me personally, I don't think this conflict will continue a long time, especially after so many statements from Russian side about nuclear escalation. I think before end of this year, this conflict will be finished, one way or another. But let's continue, and we have still TASS News Agency's report about some 30 Ukrainian military personnel, including pilots that have been trained by France to become pilots of Mirage 2000 French-made jet fighters, and probably to some of those personnels from these 30 people, at least formally, have been sent to France to learn how to do some maintenance over these Mirage planes. As I said many times before, this is just a cover-up story, because everyone understands once Western planes will arrive to battlefield, it will be obvious that these planes are piloted by NATO pilots, and these planes will use airfields in NATO member states, in Poland, Slovakia, Baltic states maybe, or Romania. You guessed it. But it's obvious that these planes not be piloted by Ukrainian pilots and not be maintained by Ukrainian personnel, because it takes years. It takes years to become a pilot of jet fighter, and it takes years to learn how to do proper maintenance over the fighter jets or any plane, for God's sake. So this kind of news, whenever we see this kind of news, this is deception campaign from Western criminal elites, and they are conducting this campaign to say that it's Ukrainians, they did train Ukrainians, and it's not NATO pilots or NATO maintenance crews, but it's Ukrainians, because look, we did inform you like 5 months ago that it's 30 Ukrainian military personnel was here in France, for example, and they were getting training. Come on, man. Who they gonna fool? It seems like these Western elites, they are truly stupid, because they think they can so easily fool entire world. But they cannot. They cannot. It's Let's continue, and this is also interesting. Interesting news. We have statements from award-winning U.S. Journalist Seymour Hersh, according to which Scholz, German Chancellor Scholz, knew about U.S. involvement in attacks on Nord Stream pipelines, and he was assisting U.S. to hide this information. Can you imagine that? Basically, if Hersh is right, and I don't have any reason whatsoever to doubt his statements, he's one of the best journalists of our lifetime. What Scholz done is treason. isn't it? He was helping other country to deceive public of his own country, and he was doing it when this other country, US, has conducted act of international terrorism against his country, because this pipeline was not just a Russian pipeline, it was a Russian and German project. And it was German no less than it was Russian, and basically US did strike its ally, its NATO ally, when they conduct this act of international terrorism on the Nord Stream pipelines. But yet again, as I said many times before, US elites are fully in control of Germany, and German government is just like puppets. They are just puppets in hands of Washington and London. They will do anything that they are told, just anything. Because if this information is correct, then Scholz is committed treason of Germany and German society by helping US to deceive German public and to hide information about these attacks on Nord Stream pipelines. Let's continue now, and this is very interesting and significant news. RIA Novosti reports here about Israel's announcement about possible use of weapons against Iran, and Israeli leadership is basically saying that if Iran will enrich uranium over the 60%, then Israel will strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and on Iran in general. This is quite serious statement, because just recently we had information that Iranian experts did manage to enrich uranium, little quantities of uranium, and some say that it was by accident, it was done by accident. But anyhow, there was some reports from IAEA, International Atomic Energy, that Iran did require some small quantities of enriched uranium that was enriched up to 90%, which is a military grade uranium. So, and according to IAEA, Iran does have enriched uranium up to 60% previously. And this is quite significant information, because Israel can say anytime that Iran already did enrich uranium up to military grade, up to 90%, and they may strike Iran and cause devastation to entire region in Middle East. I do understand that Israel has every right to defend itself, but no one give Israel the right to destroy its neighbors. And that's what Israel does basically for decades and decades and decades. I don't know. But yeah, it's only a matter of time. I'm quite sure it's only a matter of time, and Israel will conduct strike on Iran. It's only a matter of time. Now, when China managed to establish, to bring closer Iran and Saudi Arabia, Washington has less opportunities to provoke conflict between these two countries, to shut down sea routes through Persian Gulf. And they need this. They need to shut down sea routes over the Persian Gulf to cut off China from Middle Eastern oil and gas supplies. And because Saudi Arabia and Iran becoming closer, probably we will see activization of Israel. Washington will, probably give green light to Israel to conduct strikes on Iran when they, in time frame that will be in interests of Washington, and probably that's how Washington will try to distract entire region and distract shipping through Persian Gulf. Let's continue now. This is RT News Agency's report that US will build yet another military base overseas, this time in Philippines, as I understand. So I find it interesting. That's why I share with you, because US already has up to 800 military bases all around the world, and they are still building more and more. And it just shows you how out of touch with reality US elites really are. They are not concentrating on US itself and on internal problems of US. No, they are still trying to dominate over the world and use its military as a main force. When it's becoming clear year by year that US is losing positions, because first of all, because US is losing respect of the world, and this is happening because of crazy moves that US government does inside the country and outside. And as I said many times before, Biden administration was basically a gift for all the people that were seeing US as enemies, because Biden administration did damage USA like no other administration before, in my opinion. First of all, in terms of reputation. But for now, as long as they have any chance, it seems like they will use it to time and time again demonstrate force outside all around the world, and that's why they are building one more base to somehow disrupt China, because Philippines is obviously much closer to China than USA, and its Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific region will rise inevitably, and any such a move will just create little bit more problems for China, just a little bit, but it will cost US taxpayers, for example, this little bit will cost US taxpayers tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds. I still remember to nowadays when US Pentagon built a gas station in Iraq, not in Iraq, in Afghanistan, if I'm not mistaken, and price tag was $60 million. Can you imagine that? Gas station. That's a level of corruption that are probably unseen in the world. That, So let's continue. Only a few more news, and come on, man, it's already 48 minutes. Okay, I will just go through headlines and I will finish this video. So Erdogan wants to discuss with Putin grain deal and possibility that Russian grain will be firstly sent to Turkey, then Turkey will deliver to Africa, not grain, but so Erdogan intends to discuss with Putin the supply of flour. That's how we say it, isn't it? Flour from Russian grain to Africa. So it was known for quite a while now that this grain deal did give Turkey opportunity to, make some money, because Turkish companies were making flour from Ukrainian grain and re-exporting that product, and now Turkey wants to receive grain from Russia. I don't know, man. It's hard to trust Turkish government. It's they are making some dodgy moves time to time, but who knows what Moscow's decision will be. But it shows you, how difficult situation in Turkish economy is, and how difficult situation for Erdogan is. They need Russia desperately, and without Russian economy, I'm quite sure Turkish economy will just collapse. At this stage, situation in Turkey is so bad in economical terms that if Turkey will lose Russia, Turkish economy will collapse in like year or two. So let's continue. And this is information from US. Let me translate this. Federal Reserve System basically have raised base rate up to 4.75, 5%. This is done, as I understand, to conduct a high level of inflation. Dollar is becoming more expensive for U.S. Financial institutions, banks, first of all, and also and at the same time, as I understand, this is one of the way to conduct to try to reduce inflation, basically. But I don't know if it will help, because according to some experts, to stabilize U.S. Financial system, Washington needs up to $2 trillion, dollars, and who gonna give them so much money? They can print it, but more they print, less value dollar will have eventually, especially when Russia and many other countries are moving away from dollar as an international reserve currency. So, and we have reaction from Musk on a statement that Federal Reserve System did made about stability of a U.S. banking system, and he just basically bluffed at the statement of head of FRS, saying that the situation is so bad that it cannot be worse. So I'm not living in USA. It's hard for me to know how bad situation in banking system really are, but according to experts, situation is not really optimistic. And this is numbers from Russia about inflation in Russia, and according to latest data, inflation is only 5.99% at this stage, which is quite a good number if we take in account that in previous year inflation was in digit numbers. If inflation in Russia will stay around 4, 5, 6%, it will be quite an achievement for Russian economy, of course. And this is it. Yes, one more news. This morning, Russia did launch Soyuz 2-1A missile with the military, with some military satellite on board, and this launch was from Plisetsk Cosmodrome in Russia. So yes, this is it. This is it. I did not even realize how quickly time did go, and it's already 54 minutes. Too long, too long. But yes, if you find, dear friends, if you find this video interesting, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, or any other platform that you are active on. Same time, if you can and if you want, you can support my channel through PayPal with small donation or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box. This is it for now. This is it for now. Sorry that video is too long. I truly did not notice how fast time did go. So have a nice day, and take care.